Okay, today is Thursday. Uh, what is it? Is that 22nd? February? No, September 22nd. Not February. We have two warm-up questions here from our 2.1 chapter. The first one gives you two fractions, -3/5 and -7/10. It says, tell me a decimal that would fit between those two numbers. So what we want to do for this question, or probably the easiest way to do this, is just change both of these fractions to decimals to start. So -3/5. If I automatically think I need to jump to a calculator, you're wrong. Because when you can make an equivalent fraction that has a 10, 20, 10, 100, or 1,000 denominator, in this case, -3/5 is equivalent to -6/10. Once you write that, because it's -6/10, as a decimal, -6/10 is this. So this is -6/10. This, without making any equivalent fraction, is -7/10. And if I'm asked to find a decimal between there, you're like, well, I don't know a number that fits between 6 and 7. And what we said to do is it's easier in this instance to add some insignificant zeros and think money. Because if I ask you what's the number between 0.6 and 0.7, it's difficult. But if I ask you to think of an amount of money between 60 cents and 70 cents, you can do that. That's no problem. So the one that would be midway between it would be -0.65. That would be the decimal that is between those two. Oopsie daisy. All right. So the first one would be that, and you could have any numbers. You could have -0.61, -0.62. You could actually have -0.60003. That would also be one that would be between there if you wanted to. So there are infinite possibilities for decimals, but the one that's midway between it is -0.65. Our second question reverses it. It gives us two decimals and says, tell me a fraction between there. So what we want to do for this is we want to make this into equivalent, or we want to change from decimals to fractions. This is 35 hundredths, which as a fraction is 35 hundredths. This is 36 hundredths, which as a fraction is 36 hundredths. And if I'm asked what is a fraction between there, you're in the same boat. You're like, I don't know, 35 and a half out of 100, but then you don't want decimals. So what you want to do here is you want to take this decimal and you want to give some room here. I'm going to just create an equivalent fraction by multiplying both by 10. So I'm going to have 350 over 1,000 versus, I'm going to make an equivalent fraction here, to 360 over 1,000. And now that I've rewritten those two as equivalent fractions where there's space between them, I now know that the fraction that would be midway between it would be 355 over 1,000. But your answers could be 351,000, 352,000, yada, 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 yada. And if you were really bright, you probably tried to reduce that to lowest terms because you realize that 5 and 0 end in numbers that are divisible by 5. You took your calculator and said, I don't know what 355 divided by 5 is. But you grabbed it, looked at it, it was 71. And 1,000 divided by 5, I can do that in my head, is 200. So if you're being a real genius, and I asked you what's the fraction between there, an incredibly smart person would tell me 71 200ths is the fraction midway between the two. But since it's equivalent to 35 thousandths, you could also say